cold is not merely a temperature in London. It is a physical weight that presses against the chest, a damp, gray blanket that smells of wet coal and the river. It settles into the room long before I open my eyes, seeping through the single pane of glass that rattles in its frame with every gust of wind coming off the Thames. My breath hangs above me in the dark, a faint, ghostly plume that dissipates into the shadows of the ceiling. I wake before the bells of St. Mary-le-Bow strike 5. It is a habit born of 20 years walking the pavement, a rhythm etched into my bones deeper than the ache in my knees. The mattress beneath me is a straw tick stuffed tight, but matted down in the center where my body has worn a hollow over the years. It rustles with a dry, scratching sound as I shift my weight, the coarse linen sheet twisting around my legs. Beside me, the space is empty. The warmth of the bed is mine alone since Mary passed 3 winters ago, leaving only the indentation in the pillow and the silence of the room to keep me company. The darkness is not absolute. Through the grime of the window, the gas lamp on the street corner, my lamp, number 412, casts a sickly, yellow pallor across the floorboards. It is a flickering, unsteady light that stretches the shadows of the iron bed frame against the peeling wallpaper. I stare at those shadows for a moment, listening to the house settle. Somewhere upstairs, a baby cries, a thin, reedy sound that is quickly stifled. The floorboards above creak under the weight of a heavy boot. The tenement is waking up, a beast stirring in its slumber. I push back the heavy wool blanket. It is rough against the skin, smelling faintly of mothballs and the pervasive, oily scent of the city. The air in the room hits me instantly, sharp and biting. It raises goose flesh on my arms and sends a shiver skittering down my spine. I sit up, swinging my legs over the side of the bed. My feet find the floor, and the contact is shocking. The wood is bare, unvarnished pine, worn smooth by generations of tenants, and it holds the cold like a block of ice. I curl my toes instinctively, bracing myself against the chill. Rising requires a moment of negotiation with my joints. The dampness of the London fog works its way into the knuckles and the knees, stiffening the cartilage. I stand and stretch, hearing the dry pop of my spine. I move to the washstand in the corner. The water in the ceramic ewer has a thin film of ice across the surface, delicate fractal patterns that shatter under the pressure of my thumb. I pour a meager amount into the basin. There is no luxury of hot water this early. The coal fire in the kitchen range died out hours ago. I splash the freezing liquid onto my face. The shock is immediate and brutal, banishing the last dregs of sleep. It stings the skin, tightening the pores. I reach for the bar of yellow soap, a hard, gritty block made of tallow and lye that smells faintly of animal fat. I work up a thin lather in my hands and scrub my face, the grit exfoliating the soot that accumulates in the pores simply by existing in this city. The towel I use to dry off is threadbare linen, rough as a cat's tongue, but it brings blood back to the surface of my cheeks. I do not shave every morning. The razor is dull, and without hot water, it is a bloody affair. Today, I run a hand over the gray stubble on my chin and decide it will pass. It is time to dress. This is a strategic process, a fortification against the elements. First comes the union suit, a one-piece garment of red flannel that has seen better days. It is patched at the elbows and knees with darker squares of wool, the stitching uneven but sturdy. I step into it, buttoning it up the front. The fabric is soft from years of washing, but still retains a scratchy quality that I have long since ceased to notice. Over this, I pull on my shirt. It is collarless, made of thick cotton that was once white, but has yellowed to the color of old parchment. The buttons are bone, chipped at the edges. I fasten them all the way to the neck. There is no starch in this shirt. It hangs loose, meant for movement, for reaching high and bending low. Next are the trousers. They are moleskin, a heavy sheared cotton fabric that feels like soft leather but breathes like cloth. They are dark brown, stained with oil and mud near the cuffs. They are stiff with cold as I pull them on, the material resisting the bend of my knee until my body heat begins to soften it. I fasten the braces over my shoulders, the leather straps digging slightly into the flannel of my underwear. I sit back down on the edge of the bed to attend to my feet. These are my most important tools. I inspect my socks. They are hand-knitted wool, thick and gray, darned at the heels and toes where the friction is greatest. I pull them up, ensuring there are no wrinkles to cause blisters. Then the boots. They are heavy leather, hobnailed on the soles. I picked them up secondhand at a market in Whitecapel. The leather is hard and unyielding. I take a tin of tallow grease from under the bed and rub a small amount into the creases across the toes, working it in with my thumb to keep the leather waterproof. The smell of the grease is pungent, earthy, and raw. I slide my feet inside, lacing them tight. The laces are leather strips, stiff and prone to snapping, so I pull them with care. When I stand, the hobnails crunch against the wooden floor, a sound of authority and labor. A waistcoat follows, made of dark gray wool. It adds warmth to the core and provides pockets for my matches and a small rag. Finally, I tie a neckerchief around my throat. It is a square of red cotton, spotted with white. I knot it loosely, tucking the ends into my waistcoat. It serves to keep the draft out of my shirt and catches the sweat when the work gets hard. I move into the main room, which serves as both kitchen and living quarters. The air here smells of stale ash and cast iron. The black leaded range sits cold and silent against the wall. I do not have time to light a full fire for heating the room, but I need tea. I open the iron door of the stove and rake out the gray ash from yesterday, the dust puffing up into the air, tasting of burnt mineral. I crumple a page of an old penny dreadful newspaper, placing it in the grate, and arrange a handful of kindling sticks in a pyramid over it. A few lumps of coal, precious and counted, go on top. I strike a lucifer match against the rough brick of the fireplace. The sulfur flares with a hiss and a sharp, acrid smell that briefly overpowers the scent of soot. I touch the flame to the paper. It catches, curling black and orange, licking at the wood. I wait until the coal begins to glow, a dull, sullen red, before placing the small copper kettle on the hob. While the water heats, I prepare my meal. The cupboard contains the staples of my existence. I take out a loaf of bread. It is 2 days old, the crust hard enough to knock against the table. I cut a thick slice with a knife that has been sharpened so many times the blade is a thin crescent. I do not toast it, that wastes time. Instead, I take a ceramic pot of dripping, rendered beef fat, saved from a Sunday roast 3 weeks ago. The fat is white and grainy, speckled with brown jelly at the bottom. I spread it thick on the bread. It adds flavor, but more importantly, it adds fuel. A man cannot walk 10 miles in the cold on empty air. I also take a small bowl of oatmeal, left over from the night before. It is set into a solid, gelatinous mass. I eat it cold, standing by the stove, the spoon scraping against the earthenware bowl. It tastes of oats and salt, bland and heavy in the stomach. The kettle begins to sing, a low whistle that rises in pitch. I pour the boiling water into a tin mug containing a pinch of loose tea leaves. The leaves swirl in the dark water, expanding and sinking. I do not strain them. I have learned to drink around them, using my teeth as a sieve. I add a splash of milk from a jug kept on the windowsill to stay cool. The milk is thin, likely watered down by the dairyman, but it clouds the tea to a comforting beige. I drink the tea quickly, the heat searing my tongue and warming my chest. It is strong and bitter, heavy with tannins. I chew the bread and dripping, the fat coating the roof of my mouth. It is not a meal for enjoyment. It is an act of maintenance, like oiling a hinge. I glance at the clock on the mantelpiece. It is a cheap tin alarm clock, ticking loudly in the silence. 5:15. Time to go. I put on my coat. It is a pilot coat, made of heavy, dark blue wool, double-breasted with brass buttons that have tarnished to brown. The collar is wide, designed to be turned up against the wind. It weighs heavily on my shoulders, a familiar burden. I check my pockets. A box of matches a small notebook for recording broken glass or faulty burners, a rag stained black with soot and oil. I pick up my pole from where it leans by the door. It is ash wood, 6 feet long, polished smooth by the oils of my hands over thousands of mornings. At the top is the brass fixture, the hook for pulling the levers, and the small hooded torch, though I will not light the torch this morning. This shift is for extinguishing. I open the door to the hallway. The air in the stairwell is stagnant, smelling of boiled cabbage, damp plaster, and the faint, sweet rot of garbage. I descend the stairs, my hobnails clicking on the wood. The banister is sticky under my hand. I pass the doors of my neighbors, the washerwoman on the 2nd floor, the dock workers on the 1st. Silence reigns, save for the snoring of a man in apartment 2B. I reach the ground floor and pull open the heavy street door. The city hits me. It is not just the cold, though that is fierce enough to make my eyes water. It is the texture of the air. The fog is thick this morning, a London particular. It is yellow-gray, swirling in the gaslight, thick enough to taste. It tastes of sulfur, coal smoke, and the brine of the estuary. It muffles sound, turning the city into a vaulted room. The cobblestones of the street are slick with moisture, shining black like the back of a beetle. I step out, closing the door behind me. The street is deserted. The row of terraced houses disappears into the mist after 20 yards. The only light comes from the gas lamps, standing like sentinels in the gloom. They hiss quietly, a steady, pressurized whisper, SSSSS. That is the soundtrack of the modern age. My breath smokes violently as I adjust my scarf, pulling it up over my nose to filter the worst of the smog. I grip the pole. The wood is cold, sucking the heat from my fingers, even through the calluses. I begin my walk. My beat covers 4 miles of streets, alleys, and courts. 84 lamps. In the evening, I bring them to life. In the morning, I put them to sleep. It is a task of erasure. I am removing the artificial day, allowing the gray, reluctant dawn to take its place. I approach the first lamp right outside my door. It is a cast iron standard, painted green, fluted like a column. The glass panes of the lantern box are grimy with soot on the inside and condensation on the outside. The flame within is a flat blue and yellow fan, shaped like a bat's wing. It flickers slightly in the draft. I do not stop walking. I merely slow my pace. I raise the pole, the muscles in my shoulder knowing the weight and the angle perfectly. I slide the brass hook at the tip of the pole over the small lever projecting from the bottom of the lantern. With a practiced flick of the wrist, I pull the lever down. The hiss cuts off instantly. The flame pops and vanishes. For a second, the darkness intensifies, rushing in to fill the void where the light stood. The street feels colder, more hostile. I lower the pole, not breaking my stride. 1 down, 83 to go. The pavement is uneven. My boots find purchase on the slick stones, the hobnails biting into the grime. I walk in the gutter to avoid the worst of the slops thrown from windows the night before, though the drainage here is poor, and puddles of questionable liquid have frozen into treacherous patches. I turn the corner onto a wider thoroughfare. Here, the fog is slightly less dense, churned up by the early movement of market carts. I hear the clip-clop of a horse's hooves, muffled and distant, before a dray cart emerges from the mist, the horse's breath steaming like a locomotive. The driver, wrapped in sacks, nods to me. I nod back. We are members of the secret fraternity of the early hours, witnesses to the city when it is undefended. The second lamp is at the corner. I repeat the motion. Hook, pull, darkness. But this lamp requires more than just extinguishing. I noticed last night that the flame was sputtering, a sign of a clogged burner or dirty glass. I stop. I lean my pole against the post and take a small, collapsible ladder from where I had stashed it behind a rain barrel in the alleyway, a risk. But carrying it 4 miles is a young man's game. I set the ladder against the crossbar of the lamp post. The iron rings against the iron. I climb, my boots clattering on the rungs. Up here, 10 feet above the street, the air is slightly clearer, but the smell of unburnt gas is stronger. I open the glass door of the lantern. It squeaks on rusted hinges. I take the rag from my pocket. The glass is coated in a greasy film of soot. I wipe it vigorously, the friction warming the glass slightly. The black grime transfers to the rag, staining my fingers. I inspect the burner tip, a small ceramic slit. It is crusted with carbon. I take a thin wire from my waistcoat pocket and clear the obstruction. My hands are numb. The cold iron of the ladder seems to burn the skin. I close the lantern door, securing the latch. I descend, collapsing the ladder and stashing it back in the shadows. I pick up my pole and continue. The rhythm takes over. Step, 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 raise, hook, pull. The city is waking up around me. I hear the rattle of shutters being opened, the cry of a sweep offering his services. The smell of baking bread begins to compete with the coal smoke, drifting from a cellar bakery where the ovens have been firing all night. It is a rich, yeasty smell that makes my stomach rumble, reminding me that the bread and dripping was merely fuel, not satisfaction. I move into a narrow court, a dead-end slum where the houses lean toward each other, blocking out the sky. The air here is still and foul. The gas lamp is the only clean thing in the alley. As I extinguish it, a dog barks from a doorway, a ragged mongrel guarding a pile of refuse. I ignore it. I am part of the scenery. I am the clockwork of the street. The sky above is shifting. The black has turned to a bruised purple, and now to the color of dirty dishwater. The fog glows with a diffuse, pearlescent light. The gas lamps are becoming redundant, their yellow glow looking weak and sickly against the encroaching day. I reach the halfway point of my round. My shoulder aches, a dull, throbbing pain in the rotator cuff that flares up in the damp. I switch the pole to my left hand. I am ambidextrous by necessity. I pass a policeman on his beat. He is checking door handles, his bullseye lantern clipped to his belt. He is a tall man in a cape, his helmet shining with dew. "Morning, Arthur," he says. His voice is deep, muffled by a thick mustache. "Morning, Constable," I reply. My voice sounds raspy, unused for hours. "Nasty one out there." "Pea super," he agrees. "Keep your eyes open." Two lads tried to pry a lead pipe off the church roof on High Street. I see only the lamps, Constable, and the dark. He chuckles, a low rumble, and moves on, his boots echoing away into the fog. I continue. The work is monotonous, yet it requires focus. A missed lamp means a fine from the gas company. A broken mantle means a deduction from my wages. I am a shepherd of the light, and my flock must be tended. As I turn onto the high street, the traffic increases. Costermongers are setting up their barrows, shouting to one another, their voices cutting through the mist. Lovely apples, fresh fish, the world is becoming loud. The solitude of the morning is shattering. I have 20 lamps left. My pace quickens. I want to be finished before the streets are fully choked with carts and omnibuses. I want to return to the warmth of the station, to verify my tally, perhaps to find a coffee stall that sells a hot cup for a halfpenny. I reach up to lamp number 65. The lever is stiff. I have to jerk the pole. The light dies. I look up at the dead lantern, the glass now reflecting the gray morning light. My fingers are stiff claws inside my pockets. My nose is running. The taste of coal is coated on my tongue. But I am awake. I am alive. And the city is dark, ready for the sun to fail at lighting it, just as it does every winter day. I hoist the pole onto my shoulder and walk on, the iron hobnails of my boots striking sparks against the granite curb, marching toward the next pool of yellow light waiting to be extinguished. The sun has not truly broken through the gray blanket of coal smoke that hangs over London, but the quality of the light has changed. It is no longer the blue-black of the early morning rounds. It is a flat, diffuse white, the color of dirty parchment. My morning task of extinguishing the yellow flames is finished. But that was merely the prologue to the true labor of the day. Now I am a mechanic of the streets. I am a cleaner of glass, I am a beast of burden. I shift the weight of the ladder on my left shoulder. It is an extension of my own skeleton by now. It is made of solid ash wood, 12 feet long, and reinforced with iron banding. It weighs perhaps 30 pounds, but after 4 hours of carrying it, the wood feels like lead. There is a callus on my shoulder, a patch of skin as hard and yellow as old leather, where the rail of the ladder rests. It does not hurt exactly. The sensation is a dull, throbbing pressure that radiates down my spine and into my hip. My beat for the midday maintenance takes me away from the residential squares and into the arteries of commerce. Here, the silence of dawn is a distant memory. The air is solid with noise. It is a physical assault on the ears. The iron-rimmed wheels of omnibuses grind against the granite sets of the road. The hooves of dray horses, massive beasts hauling barrels of porter, strike the stones with a rhythm that shakes the ground beneath my boots. There are costermongers shouting the prices of herring and apples, their voices strained and gravelly from years of competition against the roar of the city. I approach the next lamp post. It is a cast iron sentry, painted a dark hunter green that is slowly peeling to reveal the black metal beneath. This one stands on a street corner where the wind whips around the brickwork, carrying with it the grit of the roadway. I plant the feet of the ladder. This is a precise action. The pavement is uneven, slick with a paste of horse manure and mud. If the ladder slips while I am at the top, I fall. If I fall into the street, the wheels of a hansom cab will not stop in time. I test the stability, jamming the iron-shod feet of the ladder into the crack between two paving stones. I ascend. My boots are heavy, hobnailed leather, stiff with dried mud. Each step up the rungs is a levering of my own body weight. At the top, I hook my leg around the upright to secure myself. I am 12 feet above the pavement. The perspective shifts. I am above the heads of the crowd, looking down at the bowler hats of clerks and the flat caps of laborers. The smell up here is different. It is the smell of the lamp itself. I open the glass door of the lantern. It squeals on its hinges, a sound of rusted metal. The smell of unburnt coal gas hits me instantly. It is a sulfurous, rotten odor that clings to the back of the throat. Even though the valve is closed, the residue lingers in the soot that coats the interior. My tools are simple but specific. In the deep pocket of my heavy wool coat, I carry a tin of tallow, a wire brush, a small bottle of spirits, and a sheaf of cotton rags that have turned black with use. The glass panes are filthy. In just 24 hours, the London air has deposited a film of greasy soot on the outside, while the combustion of the gas has fogged the inside. A dirty lamp is a dim lamp, and the overseer docks wages for dim lamps. I take a rag and dampen it with a splash of spirits. The liquid bites at the cracks in my fingertips. My hands are permanently stained. The coal dust worked so deep into the whorls of my fingerprints that no amount of scrubbing will ever remove it. I wipe the glass. The soot smears first, then lifts, revealing the street below through the trapezoidal pane. I have to be careful. The glass is thin. If I press too hard, it shatters. A broken pane comes out of my pay. Next, the burner. It is a small brass fixture with a steatite tip, shaped like a fish tail to fan the flame. I take a thin piece of wire, no thicker than a horsehair, and slide it into the slit of the burner. I work it back and forth gently. Carbon builds up here, hard black deposits that block the gas and cause the flame to sputter or smoke. I feel the grit give way. I blow through the nozzle, a sharp exhalation to clear the dust. I take the tin of tallow and grease the hinges of the lantern door. I wipe the copper frame. I check the pilot line. Everything must be perfect for the evening. The repetition is hypnotic. Open, wipe, scrub, pick, grease, close, descend. My descent is faster than the climb. I hit the pavement, unhook the ladder, shoulder the weight, and walk 40 yards to the next post. There are 80 lamps on this maintenance beat. I am on number 32. By 1:00, the hunger is a sharp cramp in my stomach. The city is at its busiest. The dinner hour sees the streets flooded with workers seeking food. I cannot afford the chop houses where the clerks sit on wooden benches eating boiled beef. I cannot even afford the hot eel pie stalls today. I find a spot to eat near a cabman's shelter. It is a small green hut where carriage drivers can get a hot meal. But I am not a driver, so I sit on the low stone wall outside a churchyard, just set back from the rush of the street. It provides a windbreak, shielding me from the biting breeze that channels down the avenue. I unwrap my meal from a piece of oilcloth. It is material culture, stripped to its barest essentials. 2 thick slices of bread, cut from a quartern loaf. The bread is not white. It is a grayish-brown, coarse and dense. It was baked yesterday, so the crust is hard enough to require genuine effort to tear. Between the slices lies a slab of cheddar cheese. It is not the moist, crumbling cheese of the country. This is mousetrap cheese, hard yellow, and sweating slightly in the damp air. It tastes sharp, salty, and fermented. I have a bottle of cold tea. It is black, bitter, and strong. Sugar is a luxury I use sparingly, so the tea tastes primarily of tannin and the metal of the flask. I take a bite of the bread. The texture is dry. I have to chew rhythmically, grinding the grain between my molars to generate enough saliva to swallow. It is fuel, nothing more. It sits heavy in the belly, a dense lump that will burn slowly over the next 6 hours of walking. While I eat, I watch the hierarchy of the street play out. A crossing sweeper is working the intersection in front of me. He is an old man, perhaps 60, though he moves with the stiffness of someone much older. He wears a coat that has more holes than wool, tied at the waist with a length of rope. He holds a birch broom. As a well-dressed woman approaches the curb, lifting the hem of her skirts to avoid the muck, the sweeper rushes forward. He sweeps a path through the manure and mud, clearing a clean strip of cobblestone for her to walk upon. She passes him without looking down. She does not offer a coin. The sweeper pauses, leaning on his broom, his face impassive. He is invisible to her. I am not invisible, but I am part of the furniture. To the rich, I am the lamppost. I am the infrastructure. A policeman walks by, his boots shining, his helmet tall. We nod to each other. It is a microscopic gesture, a dipping of the chin. We are both uniformed men. We are both servants of order. He ensures the peace. I ensure the light. There is a kinship there, a recognition of shared duty in the cold and the grime. Afternoon, he says. His voice is deep, muffled by a thick mustache. Afternoon, constable, I reply. My mouth is full of bread, so the words come out thick. He pauses, looking at my ladder, leaning against the church wall. Wind's picking up. Be careful on the high ones. Always am, I say. He taps his truncheon against his leg and moves on. That is the extent of my social life during the working day. I finish the last crust of bread, wiping the crumbs from my mustache with the back of my hand. The wool of my coat is scratchy against my skin. The uniform is heavy dark blue serge with brass buttons. It is durable, designed to withstand rain and coal dust, but it does not breathe. Underneath, my linen shirt is damp with sweat, despite the chill in the air. As I stop moving to eat, the sweat cools, and a shiver runs through me. It is better to keep moving. I pack the oilcloth away and lift the ladder. The pain in the shoulder returns instantly, greeting me like an old, unwanted friend. The afternoon wears on. The light begins to fail early, strangled by the smoke. I move to the commercial district, where the lamps are more ornate. These are the hexagonal lanterns outside the banks and the shipping offices. They require more care. The glass is beveled. The metalwork is scrolled. At a post outside a grand bank, I encounter a problem. I climb up, open the vent, and find the burner is loose. The thread of the brass screw has worn down. Gas is leaking. I can hear it, a faint, serpent-like hiss. I can smell it, stronger here, raw and dangerous. If I were to light this tonight, the flame would flare back. It could crack the glass, or worse, cause a buildup of gas in the lantern that would explode when the match touched it. I have to fix it. I cannot leave a dark spot on the beat. I reach into my tool pouch and pull out a pair of pliers and a small pot of white lead paste. I unscrew the burner tip completely. The smell of gas rushes out, dizzying and sweet. I have to hold my breath, turning my face away from the open pipe. My fingers are clumsy with the cold. I smear the white lead onto the threads of the screw. It is a thick, sticky substance that acts as a seal. I screw the burner back on. It fights me. The metal is cold and contracts. I apply force with the pliers, feeling the vibration of the metal through the handle. It turns. It tightens. The hissing stops. I wait for 10 seconds, sniffing the air. The smell of raw gas dissipates, replaced by the ambient smell of horse dung and coal smoke. The seal holds. I wipe the excess lead from my fingers onto my trousers. A lamplighter's trousers are a canvas of his trade, streaks of soot, spots of white lead, grease stains, and mud splatters. Below me, the character of the street changes as the afternoon deepens. The heavy drays are fewer now, replaced by more hansoms and private carriages. The clerks are rushing about with papers in leather portfolios. The newsboys are appearing, their high-pitched voices cutting through the rumble. Disaster in the mines. Read all about it. 3rd edition. I look down at the newsboy. He is barefoot despite the cold. His feet are black with street filth, the skin cracked. He dances on the cobbles to keep warm. I have a penny in my pocket, but I keep it. That penny is for my own supper. The physical sensation of the work changes as fatigue sets in. It starts in the arches of the feet. The ladder boots have thick soles, but walking 10 miles on granite takes a toll. The arches ache with a burning, stretching pain. The calves tighten. The grip of my hand on the ladder rail becomes a claw, the fingers stiffening in a curled position. I have to consciously flex them between posts to keep the blood flowing. The sensory input becomes a blur. The visual field is dominated by the gray sky, the black iron, the gray stone. The only color comes from the advertisements pasted on the hoardings, bright yellows and reds selling Pear's soap or theatrical shows in the West End. They are splashes of mockery in a monochrome world. I reach the end of the maintenance beat. 80 lamps cleaned, 80 burners checked. My hands are black. My face is smeared with soot where I have wiped sweat away. But the day is not over. The maintenance is merely the intermission. I head back toward the depot, or rather the muster point. I need to swap my cleaning tools for the lighting torch. The sun is dipping below the chimney pots. The sky is turning a bruised purple. The fog is thickening, rolling off the River Thames in great, silent waves. It dampens the sound of the city, wrapping the buildings in cotton wool. I can taste the fog. It tastes of brine and coal sulfur. It coats the inside of the mouth. At the muster point, I meet the other men. We are a silent group. There is no energy left for banter. We are gathering our strength for the second march. I set my ladder down against the wall. For the evening rounds, I do not need the heavy ladder. I will use the pole. I check my equipment for the evening. The lighting pole is long, made of lighter wood, with a brass lamp at the top containing an oil wick. I check the reservoir of the pilot lamp. I trim the wick with my thumbnail. I check my box of matches, lucifers. They are friction matches, liable to spark if jostled too hard, so I keep them in a tin box. I take a moment to lean against the brick wall of the depot. I close my eyes. I can feel the pulse of the city in the wall against my back. The vibrations of the underground trains, the steam engines passing nearby. The midday work is the invisible work. No one applauds the cleaning of the glass. No one thanks you for the greasing of the hinge. But if I did not do it, the light would not shine. I open my eyes. The twilight is here. The gloaming, this is my time. The transition from the mechanic to the magician. I look at my hands. They are tools, battered and stained. I flex my fingers. The stiffness is there, but so is the strength. I pick up the lighting pole. It feels light compared to the ladder, almost like a toy. But it is the wand that wakes the city. The overseer walks out, checking his pocket watch. He looks at the sky, then at us. "Light up," he says. 2 words. The command that starts the second half of my existence. I push off the wall. The ache in my feet recedes, replaced by the rhythm of the route. I step out of the alley and into the darkening street. The gas is waiting in the pipes. The city is holding its breath. I begin to walk. The weight of the ladder has changed. At 6 in the morning, the ash wood feels like a tool, a balanced extension of my right arm. By 2 in the afternoon, it has transformed into a parasite. It digs into the callus on my shoulder, finding the exact spot where the wool of my coat has worn thin, and the flannel shirt beneath offers no protection. The wood is damp now, having absorbed the moisture of the cloying river fog that never truly lifted, and it smells of wet timber and the sour, metallic tang of the gas residue that clings to everything I touch. I am moving through the labyrinth of Clerkenwell, a district that hums with the vibration of light industry. The streets here are narrow, choked with the traffic of dray horses hauling crates of clock parts and bound books. The mud beneath my boots is a thick black paste, a mixture of horse manure, coal dust, and the incessant London drizzle. Every step requires a conscious effort to lift the heavy leather boot, to break the suction of the mire, and to plant it firmly again without slipping on the slick cobblestones hidden beneath. This is the long drag, the adrenaline of the morning rounds, the race to extinguish the flames before the sun fully rose has long evaporated. Now it is just the maintenance, the cleaning, the invisible labor that ensures the city does not descend into chaos when the sun retreats. I stop at the base of a cast iron column on the corner of Ray Street. It is lamp number 412 on my beat. I know it not by the street name, but by the peculiar way the door of the lantern jams if you do not hit it with the heel of your hand, just so. I plant the ladder. The iron crossbar of the post clangs dull and heavy as the hooks of my ladder grip it. My knees crack as I ascend. It is a sound I feel more than I hear, a grinding friction in the joints that speaks of too many years climbing up and down, up and down. 12 feet above the pavement, the air is different. It is thicker with smoke here, the exhaust from the chimney pots at eye level. I stabilize myself, hooking one leg through the ladder rung, a habit that keeps me alive when the wind gusts down the alleyways. And I look at the lantern. The glass is filthy. A film of greasy soot has coated the interior panes, a byproduct of the coal gas burning imperfectly. If I leave it, the light tonight will be dim, a sickly yellow glow that barely penetrates the fog. The inspector will dock my pay if he sees it. A halfpenny per dirty lamp. That is the difference between meat in the stew or just broth. I pull the rag from my pocket. It is a piece of chamois leather, once soft and tan, now stained black and stiff with old oil. I spit on the glass. It is a crude solvent, but the water in my canteen is for drinking, and the spit cuts through the grime better than anything else. I scrub. My arm burns with the repetitive motion. Small circles, large circles. The friction warms the glass beneath my fingers. I have to be careful. The panes are thin, and if I press too hard, the glass will shatter. A broken pane is sixpence. A broken pane is a disaster. Inside the lantern, the smell of unburnt gas is faint, but present. The pilot light is not used on these older models. I have to ensure the burner tip is clear for the evening ignition. I take a small piece of fine wire from my waistcoat pocket. It is no thicker than a horsehair. I insert it gently into the ceramic slit of the burner tip. I feel the resistance of a carbon deposit, a tiny blockage that would cause the flame to flutter and hiss. I work the wire back and forth. It is delicate surgery, performed with hands that are swollen and numb from the cold. Below me, the world continues without looking up. A costermonger pushes a barrow of winter cabbages, shouting the price in a hoarse, rhythmic bark that bounces off the brick walls. A group of factory girls, their aprons dusted with white flour, hurry past, their heads down against the wind. I am invisible to them. I am part of the street furniture, as static and uninteresting as the iron post I cling to. I descend. The impact of my boots hitting the pavement sends a shockwave up my shins. I unhook the ladder, hoist it back onto the raw patch of my shoulder, and move on. 40 yards to the next post. The fatigue in the afternoon is not just physical, it is a mental fog. The repetition is hypnotic. Plant the ladder. Climb. Clean. Descend. Walk. The mind tries to wander, to think of the warm tap room at the Golden Anchor, to think of the rent due on Friday. But I must keep it tethered to the task. A wandering mind leads to a slipped foot. A slipped foot means a broken leg. A broken leg means the workhouse. Around 3 o'clock, the light begins to change. It does not get brighter or darker in a linear way. Rather, the quality of the gray shifts. The sky above the rooftops turns the color of a bruised slate. The gasworks to the east belch, a fresh cloud of smoke that drifts across the horizon, merging with the descending fog to create a premature twilight. This is the signal. The city is preparing for the transition. I reach a particularly difficult lamp in front of a physician's house. The ironwork here is decorative, with unnecessary flourishes that trap the dirt. The wind has picked up, channeling through the street like water through a flume. As I climb, the ladder vibrates against the post. I have to lock my muscles, turning my body into a rigid anchor. I open the lantern door, and the wind tries to rip it from my grasp. The hinge squeals. I inspect the burner. The ceramic tip is cracked. I curse softly. A cracked tip means the flame will be jagged, potentially cracking the glass from thermal shock. It has to be replaced. This is a task I dread doing in the wind. I reach into my satchel, my fingers fumbling past the lucifer matches and the heavy brass key, searching for the small cardboard box of spare tips. I find one. It is cool and smooth, like a small tooth. Now comes the hard part. I have to unscrew the old tip. The brass fitting is seized, corroded by the sulfur in the gas. I take my pliers, the metal biting into my palm. I apply pressure. It does not move. I am 12 feet in the air, balancing on a wet rung, wrestling with a piece of brass the size of a thimble. My breath clouds in front of my face, obscuring my vision. I take a deep breath, hold it, and apply steady, increasing force. I feel the sudden give, not the smooth turn of threads, but the jagged snap of corrosion breaking. I exhale. I unscrew the broken ceramic, careful not to drop it onto the physician's pristine doorstep below. I screw in the new tip. It threads cleanly. I wipe the glass. I close the door. The relief is momentary. It is replaced immediately by the knowledge that I have 30 more lamps to check before I can return to the depot. By 4 o'clock, the streets are changing character. The commercial traffic of drays and carts is thinning, replaced by the hansom cabs beginning their evening runs, their carriage lamps flickering with candlelight. The noise of the city shifts from the heavy rumble of industry to the sharper, more urgent clip-clop of lighter horses. My stomach tightens. I have not eaten since 6 in the morning, a slice of bread and dripping. The hunger is a dull, gnawing ache that sits behind my ribs. It makes the cold feel sharper. I fantasize about a hot potato sold from the iron ovens on the street corners, the ones that smell of charcoal and roasting skin. But I cannot stop. To stop is to lose the rhythm. To stop is to let the muscles stiffen. I turn the corner onto Clerkenwell Green. Here I see another lamplighter Thomas working the adjacent beat. He is an older man, his back permanently curved into the shape of the burden he carries. We do not wave. We do not stop to chat. We exchange a single, sharp nod. It is a recognition of shared suffering, a silent language of the trade. He looks tired. His ladder sits heavy on his shoulder. We are two moths circling the same gray flame, bound by the geography of the gas lines. The final stretch of the maintenance shift is the hardest. The body has gone past the point of protest and settled into a numb, mechanical compliance. My hands are black with soot. The grime worked so deep into the skin that it looks like a tattoo. My eyes sting from the wind and the ammonia fumes. I reach the last lamp on my list. It stands near the entrance to the depot. It is a simple task, a quick wipe of the glass, but I treat it with the same ritualistic care as the first. I am a professional. The corporation pays for clean glass, and clean glass is what they will get. When I descend for the final time, the sensation of the ground is strange. My legs feel light, unmoored without the vertical struggle. I shoulder the ladder and walk the final 100 yards to the depot yard. The yard is a flurry of activity, but it is a subdued, weary kind of bustle. Men are returning from all points of the compass, streaming in like iron filings drawn to a magnet. The sound of ladders clattering against the brick walls of the storage shed is a chaotic percussion. I slide my ladder into its designated rack. The absence of its weight makes me feel as if I might float away. Yet my shoulder throbs with the phantom pressure of the wood. I walk to the foreman's station. The foreman, Mr. Henderson, sits behind a high desk, a ledger open before him. He does not look up. Number 22, I say, my voice rasping. It is the first time I have spoken in 4 hours. Henderson runs a finger down the column. Any breaks? None, I reply. Replaced a tip on the physician's lamp. Farringdon Road. He makes a mark in the book, a small scratch of the pen that records my day's struggle. Good. Go get your tea. Lighting starts at 4:45. The end of the shift is a misnomer. It is merely a pause. I have perhaps 45 minutes before I must take up the torch. I walk out of the depot and toward the small public house that sits in the shadow of the gasometer. The pub is crowded with men in the same uniform, heavy wool coats, flat caps, scarves wrapped tight. The air is thick with the smell of wet wool, pipe tobacco, and stale beer. It is warm, a humid animal warmth generated by 50 bodies crammed into a small room. I push my way to the bar. I put down 2 pennies, a pint of porter, black and thick as the river mud. I take the glass and find a space against the wall. I do not sit. If I sit, I will not be able to stand up again. I drink. The liquid is room temperature, full of iron and malt. It hits my empty stomach like a heavy stone, settling the hunger, dulling the sharp edges of the fatigue. I look around the room. We are a brotherhood of the latter. To my left, young Billy is rubbing his calves, his face pale. He is new, only 3 weeks on the beat. He hasn't developed the legs for it yet. He looks like he might weep. To my right, old man McGregor is staring into his glass, his lips moving silently, perhaps counting the lamps he has cleaned, or perhaps counting the minutes until he has to go back out. There is very little talking. The social dynamic here is one of shared silence. We do not need to tell stories of the day. We all walked the same cobblestones. We all fought the same wind. We all cleaned the same soot. I close my eyes for a moment. The noise of the pub fades into a dull roar. I can feel the pulse in my fingertips, the throb of the blood pushing against the skin. I focus on the smell of the porter, the yeasty, comforting scent of fermentation. In 30 minutes, the bell will ring. We will leave the warmth of this room. We will trade our ladders for the long lighting poles. We will go back out into the fog, which has now turned the city into a ghost world. We will walk the same miles we just walked, but in reverse. We will bring the fire. But for now, for these few precious minutes in the golden, smoky light of the afternoon, I am still. I take another sip. I let the fatigue wash over me, heavy and familiar. I am a lamplighter, and the city is waiting for me. The copper tip of my lighting pole feels heavy in my grip, a distinctive weight that has settled into the muscles of my right shoulder over the last 3 hours. The final lamp of my beat stands before me on the corner of Clerkenwell Green. The fog has thickened significantly since the afternoon, transforming from a gray mist into a yellow, sulphurous blanket that tastes of coal smoke and trapped river damp. It is the kind of pea soup fog that muffles the sound of the city, turning the clatter of iron-shod hooves on cobblestones into dull, rhythmic thuds. I reach up. The pole is an extension of my arm now, a tool I do not need to look at to operate. I locate the lever of the street lamp high above, the metal hook at the end of my staff catching the small ring of the tap. I pull. A hiss of escaping gas reaches my ears, a sound like a snake hidden in the iron housing. I engage the igniter, the small oil-soaked wick housed within the brass tip of my pole. There is a soft concussion of air, a breath of heat, and the gas catches. The mantle flares, casting a halo of sickly white light that struggles to push back the encroaching gloom. That is the last one. 84 lamps lit. My beat is finished. I lower the pole, resting the base on the toe of my boot to keep it out of the street muck. The transition from labor to rest is not immediate. It is a slow shifting of gears. My legs, conditioned by years of walking the same 6 miles twice a day, continue to thrum with a dull, persistent ache. The cold of the evening has seeped through my heavy fustian coat, settling into the marrow of my elbows and knees. I begin the walk home. It is not a direct line. I must navigate the labyrinth of the London night, weaving through the arteries of the city that are clogging with the evening rush. The street sellers, the costermongers, are packing up their barrows. I pass a fishmonger shouting his final prices. The smell of brine and old scales cutting through the pervasive scent of soot. He is tossing buckets of water over the stone slab, washing the slime into the gutter where it mixes with the horse manure and the black sludge of the street. I keep my head down, chin tucked into my muffler. A lamplighter is a public figure, yet invisible. People know the uniform, the peaked cap, and the long coat with the brass buttons, but they rarely look at the face. I am merely a function of the city, like the paving stones or the sewer grates. As I turn onto the narrower streets, leading toward the tenement rows of Bethnal Green, the character of the noise changes. The roar of the main thoroughfares fades, replaced by the intimate, crowded sounds of the poor. I hear arguments spilling out of open windows, the crying of infants, and the raucous, piano-thumping energy of a gin palace on the corner. The etched glass of the pub windows glows with inviting warmth, and the smell of stale beer and sawdust wafts out as the doors swing open. I do not stop. The 3 pennies in my pocket are accounted for, and none of them are for gin. My street is dark, save for the pools of light cast by the lamps I myself lit only an hour ago. The irony does not escape me. I provide the light for others to find their way home, while my own path is trodden by memory more than sight. The pavement here is uneven, the stones loose and prone to squirting jets of dirty water when stepped upon. I know which stones to avoid. I reach my building, a tall, narrow structure of soot-stained brick that seems to lean wearily against its neighbor. The front door is heavy, the wood swollen with damp, and it requires a sharp shove of the shoulder to open. The hallway smells of boiled cabbage, wet wool, and the distinct, earthy odor of dry rot. There is no gas light here. The landlord is too miserly for that. I navigate the stairs in the pitch black, my hand trailing along the peeling wallpaper to guide me. 3rd floor, the second door on the left. I turn the handle and step inside. The contrast is immediate. The air in our 2 rooms is warm, thick with the humidity of drying clothes and the heat of the cast iron range. My wife, Martha, is by the fire, her silhouette framed by the orange glow of the coals. She is ironing, the heavy flat iron hissing as she presses it against a gentleman's shirt she has taken in for washing. I close the door behind me, shutting out the draft from the stairwell. I lean my lighting pole in its designated corner near the door, next to the small pile of kindling. It must be kept upright and away from the damp. If the wick mechanism rusts, my livelihood is compromised. Martha looks up, pushing a stray lock of hair from her forehead with the back of her wrist. She nods, a silent greeting that conveys relief at my safe return. We do not speak immediately. The exhaustion of the working class is a quiet thing. I move to the small wooden chair by the window and begin the ritual of unburdening. First, the cap. I place it on the hook, then the heavy coat. It smells of the street, of gas residue, horse dung, and fog. I hang it near the fire, but not too close, to let the wool steam dry. Next are the boots. This is the greatest struggle of the evening. The leather has stiffened in the cold, and my feet have swollen from the miles of walking. I grunt as I pry the heel of the left boot off with the toe of the right. Then repeat the process. The relief is physical, a sudden rush of blood returning to constricted veins. I peel off my socks, which are damp with sweat and thin at the heels. I rub the soles of my feet, feeling the calluses that have formed like armor plating over the years. Martha sets the iron on the trivet and moves to the range. It is time for supper. She ladles food from the iron pot that has been simmering on the hob. Tonight, it is a stew of mutton neck and root vegetables. It is a good meal, substantial. The mutton was likely purchased late on Saturday night, when the butchers sell off the less desirable cuts for pennies. But Martha has a way of slow cooking it until the gristle dissolves into a rich gelatin that thickens the broth. I sit at the small table, the wood scrubbed white with lye and sand. She places the bowl before me, along with a thick slice of bread. The bread is a day old, slightly hard at the crust, but perfect for dipping. I eat slowly. In the morning, I eat standing up, rushing to beat the dawn to the lamps. In the evening, I eat with the reverence due to fuel. The stew is hot, burning the roof of my mouth pleasantly. I taste the sweetness of the parsnips and the earthy heaviness of the potatoes. The mutton is stringy but flavorful. I tear the bread and wipe the bowl, soaking up the gravy. Martha sits opposite me with her own small portion and a cup of tea. We eat in the semi-darkness, illuminated only by the firelight and a single tallow candle on the table. Candles are expensive, so we burn it only while we eat. We speak of the small economies of our life. Martha tells me that the price of coal has gone up a farthing per sack. I tell her that the lamp on King Street has a cracked pane that I will need to report to the overseer, though I doubt they will replace it until it falls out completely. These are not complaints, merely status reports of our survival. After the meal, I push the bowl away. My stomach is full, and the warmth of the room is beginning to make my eyelids heavy. But the day is not quite done. There is maintenance to attend to. I fetch my pole from the corner and bring it to the light of the fire. I take a rag from my pocket, one specifically kept for this purpose, and wipe down the brass housing of the igniter. The combustion of the oil and the soot from the gas lamps leaves a black, greasy residue that can clog the pilot flame if left unchecked. I polish the brass until I can see the distorted reflection of the fire in the metal. I check the reservoir of oil at the base of the torch. It is low. Carefully, I pour a small measure of colza oil from a tin jug into the reservoir. My hand, steady despite my fatigue. Spilled oil is wasted money. While I work, Martha clears the table. She pours water from the heavy ceramic pitcher into the washing basin. The water is cold, having sat out all day, so she adds a splash from the kettle on the hob to take the chill off. I finish with the pole and set it back in its corner. Now I have a brief moment of leisure. I take my clay pipe from the mantelpiece. It is a short-stemmed cutty, stained dark brown from use. I pack it with a pinch of shag tobacco, the cheap, dark stuff that burns hot and strong. I light it with a spill of paper from the fire, drawing deep. The smoke is harsh and biting, but it settles my nerves. I watch the smoke curl up toward the ceiling, where it joins the permanent cloud of soot that stains the plaster. I do not read. I can read, after a fashion, the street signs and the broadsheets, but the light is too poor, and my eyes are stinging from the fog. Instead, I simply sit. I listen to the sounds of the house. Above us, the heavy tread of the dock worker who lives on the 4th floor. Through the wall, the muffled coughing of the old widow, a dry, rattling sound that never seems to cease. These sounds are the heartbeat of the tenement, a reminder that we are packed together like herrings in a barrel, sharing our warmth and our misery. Martha finishes washing the dishes and dries her hands on her apron. She moves to the window and draws the thin calico curtains, though there is nothing to see outside but the swirling yellow fog pressing against the glass. It is time to prepare for sleep. We do not have a separate bedroom. The room we sit in is the room we sleep in. The bed is in the corner, a wooden frame strung with ropes that support a mattress filled with flock shredded rags and wool. It is lumpy and smells faintly of dust, but it is ours. I stand and knock the dottle from my pipe into the fire grate. I begin to undress. The layers come off in reverse order. The waistcoat, the braces, the flannel shirt. The air away from the fire is cool, raising goose flesh on my arms. I do not wash fully. A full wash is a luxury for Sunday mornings. Instead, I move to the basin Martha has prepared. I use a piece of rough flannel and a scrap of yellow soap that smells of caustic soda. I scrub my face, my neck, and my hands. The water turns gray instantly, darkening with the soot of the city that has clung to my skin. I scrub until the skin is red and raw, trying to remove the smell of the gasworks that seems to permeate my very pores. I dry myself with a coarse towel. Martha has already climbed into the bed, wearing her night shift and a woolen cap. She has placed the flat iron, wrapped in a piece of old blanket, at the foot of the bed to warm the sheets. I extinguish the candle. The room plunges into darkness, save for the dying embers of the fire, which cast a deep, red glow across the floorboards. I check the door one last time to ensure the bolt is thrown. The city is full of desperate souls, and a latch is a small defense, but a necessary one. I climb into the bed. The ropes creak under my weight. The sheets are cotton, worn smooth and thin, cold against my skin despite the iron at the foot. I curl my legs up, seeking the warmth, and pull the heavy patchwork quilt up to my chin. The quilt is heavy, made of scraps of wool, velvet, and linen that Martha has salvaged over the years. Its weight is comforting. I lie on my back for a moment, staring up into the darkness. My body begins to unclench. The muscles in my calves twitch, a phantom echo of the thousands of steps taken today. My shoulder, where the pole rests, throbs with a dull, rhythmic pulse. I close my eyes. The sensory map of the day plays out in reverse behind my eyelids. The hiss of the gas, the yellow flare of the mantle, the slick, treacherous cobbles, the biting wind on the bridge, the smell of the river. I feel Martha shift beside me, her breathing deepening into the slow rhythm of sleep. I turn onto my side, facing the wall, pulling the quilt tighter around my shoulders. The cold of the London night is waiting just outside the window, pressing against the brick and glass, seeking a way in. But for now, I am warm. My thoughts drift. I calculate the hours until dawn. I must be up at 5. The lamps must be extinguished. The cycle must begin again. 6 miles to walk, 84 lamps to put out. But that is tomorrow. The sounds of the street below have dulled to a low murmur. The Jinn Palace has closed. The arguments have ceased. The fog holds the city in a mute embrace. My breathing slows. The ache in my legs fades into a distant hum. The smell of the coal smoke from the dying fire is the last thing I register. It is the scent of home. Darkness takes me. The day is done.